Hey guys, Matt, IronTrap Garage, and today we're going to do a quick little tech video, something we've gotten questions about in the past, and it's a good time to do it. So we blew apart the 32.5 window, the Schroll coupe, and the car needed the front end to be dropped just a little bit more. As I stared at the car and we put some parts on it and kind of got the weight on it, I'm like, I'd like it to go down just a hair. So the car had a original spring pack in it that they had taken a handful of leaves out, and I had taken maybe like one more out, and pretty much didn't want to take any more leaves out of the spring pack, but I wanted to get it down just a little bit more, even with the small tires we had on the front. So trick that you can do with this is reverse size springs on these buggy spring type cars. You can do a reverse size spring. The easiest ones to do are the front springs because they don't have a lot of arch to them. When you're doing something like a Model T, that high arch, or even a Model A, there's a lot more involved in straightening them out and reversing those springs. So I have a lot of times I have these just laying around that we've, when I do buyouts and different stuff, I have extra springs from Posies or whatever that people have bought and their abandoned project didn't get used. So I had one here that I thought would work, but it's actually Model A. It's a little, or even, I'm not sure what it is, it's a little narrower than this 32 front spring. So we're going to take the original one today and we are going to just reverse the eye on this. So it's going to be, like you can see here, reverse eye is just like it sounds. The original one here, the eye goes underneath. On this, the eye goes over top. So that gives you basically the drop of the shape of the eye there, which ends up being about like an inch or so is what the drop is a lot of times on that, give or take. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take this, go over to the press, show you guys straightening it out and then reversing it, and hopefully we'll have something that is basically like this but with the eye the other way around. So we're going to start by just putting on the bench here before we do anything, tracing the shape of the spring on the bench, and then as we're doing it we can check our work and make sure that we have it back to the shape that it was originally when we're working on it. So start with making the line here. That, and then of course we will mark our center line right here so we can keep an eye on where we're at. Just a regular square? Yep. Okay. Yeah, just so I can mark the line all the way across. Yep. Is definitely key because then you can keep track. Especially somebody like me that probably would get a phone call and walk away and be like, did we do this one?
Right.
I'll just do it by hand first and then we'll see where we're at before I start putting the handle on it. So you guys can, if you watch back here at the spring, when I have this in the press brake, as I tighten it down and put pressure on it, you'll see it actually lift back up just a little bit. So that's what we're doing as we're going. We're just putting a little pressure here and it's just slowly flattening the spring out, it's slowly raising the back up. So that's how you can tell you're doing something. I'm just starting by, and there's going to be spring back. I'm just doing this by hand for now without my handle. That's my leverage on this screw press, just to get an idea. I don't want to go too crazy and make it all wavy with the handle because it's kind of like a hydraulic one. It's hard to tell how much pressure you're putting on. And of course I'm stubborn and I like my 1930s press that came out of an old local dirt racer legends shop, Red Coffin. If you're a local guy from Berks County and you know old dirt racing history, Red Coffin was a pretty famous dirt racer for many years, and I got this out of his garage where he built all his cars. when they had a sale at his place. So it's kind of got some history to it, and it's old, and I like things that are difficult and old, so fits perfectly in the shop. So we'll keep doing that. This should straighten it out a little bit. We'll probably go to the handle next pass just because I'm impatient, but this will give me an idea of how much we moved it after this pass. Almost to the end here. I'm gonna have to probably spin it around just because I'm kind of tight up against the wall, but that's no big deal. We got it numbered so we know where we need to be. All right, so we got this messed with a little bit, and that didn't do a ton. So I need to use a little more force with it. Flattened it out a little bit if I put this on here where we were, but not a ton. So I'm going to use the handle now. I just didn't want to go nuts with it, and we'll start straightening it out a little bit more. It'll go a little quicker this time around. It did move it a little bit, but we need to go a little more. It's closer to flat, but we want to get it perfectly flat, then we'll start going the other way. So we basically did like 2.5 passes, or 2 passes. We had to go back. One little spot didn't quite shape the same as the other. So we got it on the bench here, and you can see we're already into reverse mode. We are, the eye is over, and we're going the other way with the arch. So it's 2, maybe 3 passes with that. So the arch is getting there. It's getting pretty close. The original, or not original, this aftermarket one actually has a bit more arch to it than this original one did, so who knows, this could have been de-arched a little bit, but we're going to try and match what's there. So if you want to, we pick it up here and kind of eyeball where center is, we need to go quite a bit here still. So we're going to go through another, probably, I'm going to guess 2 passes, and we'll probably get us pretty darn close because the last pass really brought it up and around. But we are going the right way. It's just a long process. Do a couple more. So we also drew another line here, and we're kind of looking at it, trying to decide where to hit. And the ends actually have pretty good curvature to them, but you can see in the center, it actually like flattens out right here. So we're gonna hit the center from basically where this mark is, probably to over in here somewhere. Try and hit that and pump the center up a little bit, and that'll help the whole thing because we're liking the arch that is there, and that's the line that Steve drew, and it's looks like it's pretty good. So that's what we're going to hit first, but you can definitely see when you stand back here how this flattens out right in the center there. So we need to raise that up to give it more of an arch. All right, so Steve and I were working on this and taking turns just working through the press brake, the Eastwood press brake, and we got everything. We decided to bolt all the leaves together, and I have a C-clamp on here just holding it together. See how close we are in shape. So we pulled everything together, and what you're looking for is just that everything fits nice and tight like that. So that's when you can tell that you have everything reshaped correctly, because when you pull these all together, they're pretty darn close. Now, I don't have it pulled real tight. You can see here's a little gap, but I have it pretty much snug enough that you could start the nut on the bottom. So have it all together, and it's looking really good all the way through. And then right about here, you can actually see we have two little marks where we were working. We already had worked that area a little bit more, and I don't know if it's just because it's an old spring. Some of the areas seem to move more quickly than the other areas, and we've had like some areas like in this area we only had to really do like, you know, the same number of passes all the way through, but then there was sections like this where, for whatever reason, maybe it's human error, it didn't move quite as much. So right in here, you can see there's a little bit of a gap. So we need to flatten that out right there just a little bit. So I'm gonna take it, run it through, hopefully one more pass through the press brake, and just bring this up a little bit so that it's touching there. And then we'll pretty much have our reverse side spring all set up. You can see it's looking good. And we will have basically the drop of the eye there is what it'll give us for a drop in the front end, which should be perfect on the car. So I'm going to take this all apart one more time and then use the press brake and just get that little bit knocked out there. Working okay?
Oh yeah.
And it's got the system down now.
Yeah. Figuring it out.
Not really rocket science.
No. Nope. Luckily.
All right, so got the spring all back together, and everything's looking pretty good here. The spring is all fitting up pretty darn good, and the shape of this bottom spring is pretty much matches everything, which I'm happy with. And then we put that on the car, put some weight on, everything sits together really nice. And we're gonna get just that little bit of drop. So that is the kind of old school way to reverse a front spring for an early Ford with the buggy suspension. It really doesn't matter if you have a Model T, a Model A, or any of the early V8 cars. The process is basically the same. This is a 32 spring. Even if you have a spring in front style for like a later car, it's gonna be basically the same thing. So that process you could do with, if you have a press brake, like that Eastwood one I'm using there is a really handy one that works in a hydraulic or a screw press. But there is a number of other ways you can do it with like a big slip roll, or you can do it with an anvil and like a fixture and a hammer is the really old school way to do it. But basically the moral of the story is you need to do it in that process, keep it controlled, and then you can flip the spring around, you can get yourself a little bit of a drop, and you're keeping original Henry Ford parts, and you're kind of doing it the old school way, which is kind of fun for me. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you have a process for doing the same thing yourself, that isn't one of the ways I've showed or talked about already, drop it in the comments down below. I'd love to hear from you guys. Thanks. Catch you later.